7K open gate, internal RAW, C-Log 2, and maybe most importantly, IBIS at only $2,800? Never mind if the C50 is the FX3 killer. A better question might be, is the Canon R6 III the C50 killer? Well, after diligently testing the R6 III over the course of a few days, including shooting an entire music video with it, I would have to say, absolutely. Well,
from a certain point of view.
A certain point of view?
But let's take a step back for a second, because I have a hot take about Canon cameras in general, including the R6 III, and that is this. Ever since they started copying Sony, they've lost the source. The Canon C300 Mk III, which I now own along with the Canon C70, which I used to own, are almost like the last Ronin, the last samurais, the last real outlaws, the last real champs of the Canon ecosystem. And ever since then, it's been a slow decline into mediocrity. But like all great YouTube philosophers that have come before me, I must seek to prove my hypothesis. So not only will I be mini-reviewing the Canon R6 III, I will also be comparing it directly to the Canon C300 Mark III, which I also used on the said music video and did a series of side-by-sides with. The C300, as you should know, is pretty much a big, girthy version of the C70, so you're getting 3 camera comparisons for the price of 1. First, let's address, why not the C50? Well, the C50 isn't available yet, for starters, and for seconds, the C50 did shoot itself in the foot with this whole no IBIS thing. God bless Eric Walker, resident Canon lover, who shot with this camera for its launch and was the only YouTuber with the balls and Canon affiliation to be honest and transparent enough to highlight why this was a significant problem.
Canon either needs to just improve their IBIS and put it in the camera, make it better, or 2, if it's going to be the same quality of IBIS, include it and let me turn it off if I don't want it. To not put IBIS in what is supposed to be the every person's affordable entry-level cinema camera just makes no sense to me.
And shame on the YouTubers who tried to run game on the YouTubers by pretending we all had hydraulic robot arms we were going to be attaching this handheld camera to for this omission about IBIS to make sense. And shame on Canon for pretending they really asked filmmakers if they did or did not want IBIS when making this decision. Because the real ultimate shame here is simply that Canon kinda suck at IBIS. It's a Canon problem. It's a known Canon thing. Canon have been battling with IBIS technology for years and have not made the same progress as every other manufacturer in this regard. So the real reason they didn't include IBIS is because they're so bad at doing it, they can't really add it to a flagship cinema camera just to gift that camera the dreaded camera wobbles. Go home, Canon. You're drunk. If you want to see how this missing feature compromises a shoot, just watch the full-time filmmaker's case study with the C50. You can see him desperately wanting to get off his gimbal, but being forced to spend the entire shoot on it to avoid micro jitters. You can see the constraint of the camera limiting his choices. Also, who the hell wants to shoot on a gimbal for an entire day? He also took a poll about whether or not the C50 should have had IBIS, and 85% of full-time filmmakers said that yes, it should have IBIS. Big surprise. So who exactly were Canon talking to about this? These other filmmakers that told them not to put it in there, because I have something for them. It's in my pocket. Let me dig it out real quick. Yep, there it is. Thank you very much, guys. We really appreciate you. Look, let's just talk real facts. A handheld size camera is designed to be used handheld. If to use the camera handheld, you have to rig it out, weigh it down, or put it on a gimbal or sticks and modify it drastically, it is no longer a handheld camera and is running completely counterintuitively to the way it was designed. You're turning it into a larger camera, which defeats the purpose of making it a small camera. This is not hard to wrap your brain around. Anyone who says they do not want sex has never had good sex, and anyone who says they do not want IBIS has just never had good IBIS. Yeah, I get it. For some applications, IBIS is not welcome. You need to put it on your robot arm, You only use handheld cameras on your robot arms. You're the winter soldier out here with your robot arm. And when you're not tugging off Canon's bad decisions with that robot arm, you're operating your handheld camera with it. Good for you, Bucky, but for those not frozen in the Cold War, 98% of normies buying this camera will want to use it run and gun, just like the camera it's copying, the FX3. Guess what has IBIS and can be used handheld? The FX3. So yeah man, open gate is cool, but have you tried handheld camera with no micro jitters? Guys, we've been through this. Sigma FP, great, if only it had IBIS. Blackmagic Pocket OG, great, if only it could have IBIS though. Canon R8, would love it to have IBIS. Small cameras suck to use without having this option. Yes, you can use electronic stabilization with lenses, but it's just not the same. What was fun and spontaneous about this form factor becomes a chore. The compact size, something that should be a huge advantage over a heavy cinema camera, becomes a detriment to itself. So no, the Canon C50 isn't going to be the FX3 killer. In fact, it might just have, well, unalived itself by this super weird choice. C50 rant over. And just like Pennywise the Dancing Clown, after rejecting the C50, it was time to return back to my cave full of Blackmagic, Nikon, and Panasonic souls under the sewers until I needed to feed again, until something coaxed me from my slumber. Then the Canon R6iii release. So interesting, even to me, someone who had vacated the Canon ecosystem for the last 3+ years. In fact, the Canon R6iii might be the first Canon camera in this price bracket not to be touched by their dreaded triple hammer. Not even grazed by it, not even a flesh wound, not even hobbled just a little bit. They dropped the hammer with this release. Canon basically said, you get the Canon C50 image with IBIS and an EVF and more proper photo modes for $1,100 less than the C50.
I'd buy that for $1.
Look, this is the most competitively priced Canon camera for the features it has since forever. This is unprecedented in Canon history. A Canon camera that offers excellent value for money. Canon said go ahead and switch the style up, and if they hate, then let them hate and watch the money pile up. This is probably going to be one of Canon's top performing cameras for the next few years, and for good reason. So let's look at the changes which make it different to every other Canon camera. Yup, it's got IBIS. Is the IBIS good? Is it better than no IBIS? Depends who you ask, I guess, and what type of lenses you film with, but for me, absolutely. But the other revelation is C-Log2, Canon's flattest log profile that offers the most flexibility and dynamic range in post, something that was always reserved for their Cine line until the Canon R5 Mark II and now the R6iii. This is a big deal for me personally because with these features, with C-Log2, this makes it the ideal B-cam for a proper Canon Cine cam like the C300 Mark III. This is something smaller, lighter, with some modern innovations like 7K open gate, which makes it the perfect complementary camera. The R6iii uses a CF Express B card and even records in Canon Raw in a few different flavors. This little guy recording internal RAW, again something normally reserved for Cine cameras and their higher-end mirrorless cameras, that's awesome. This was also something very appealing to me because, as we know,
ooh baby, I like it raw. Yeah baby, I like it raw.
So the idea is simple. I'd have my big cinema camera as the A-cam, leveraging things like its inbuilt NDs, full-size XLRs, different shooting modes, and it also looks like a camera you can charge your full day rate for, while the smaller R6iii works as the B-cam that just slides in there, much smaller and easier to move around quickly, and yes, shoot handheld. It can go on a gimbal, it can do social first content that needs vertical aspect ratios. A hell of a 1-2 combo filming in C-Log2 to match cameras in a couple of clicks in post-production. In any other year, at any other time in Canon history, you have to believe that at least some of these features would be purposely withheld on this camera. But we have to give them full credit. Times have changed, competition is stiff, and they're adapting, which ultimately makes us, the consumer, the real winner for their change of strategy. So I was really testing this camera in these environments specifically to see if it could be the perfect B cam to complement my C300. And putting it up against my C300, I wouldn't say that the C300 was dramatically better. I would say sometimes it felt like there was a little bit more depth to the image, maybe some of the last Ronin Canon magic, but they did match very well. Only in low light could you really see where the R6 III was significantly better thanks to having its dual base ISO at 800 and 6400. These later scenes were using the second base ISO, and yes, this is another welcome addition to the R6 III, which is the fact that at that second base ISO, it's good in low light in the same way many of the competition are. Now, if you will recall at the start of this video, I did mention the downward trend of Canon, and it is a very strange phenomenon because as they create more affordable, higher spec cameras with better features that are better in a lot of ways, it does feel like they're shifting away from what made Canon Canon. To me, peak Canon was this whole dual gain ISO phase in the C300 Mk III and the C70, a technology that was very ARRI-like, giving you this really wide dynamic range along with Canon's legendary colors. The only reason I ended up selling my C70 was its inability to really manage darker skin tones as accurately as its lighter skin tones, which didn't suit much of the documentary and corporate work that I did, and that god-awful body design. Like the C70 and the C80 are the most unergonomic cameras, with the only competition coming from the Blackmagic Pocket line of cameras, which was also universally disliked. And guess what? Even with the C70 rigged out, I did really miss IBIS. You would still have a little bit of your handheld work feeling a little too handheld from time to time. The problem with these older cameras is that they came out around the time that Sony really started to surpass them, not in terms of image quality, but definitely in terms of ease of use. Yes, Canon looks great, but their autofocus was so far behind Sony's, and yes, dual gain ISO was cool, but not as cool as filming at 12800 ISO with an FX3. And yeah, the C70 might have had better cinema features over the FX3, but guess which one you prefer in your hand for a full day's shooting. Sony have never been better than Canon, but they've been much easier. And these conveniences wooed a lot of new filmmakers and a lot of old filmmakers to switch teams, including me. Canon didn't stop making great cameras, they just forgot how lazy people are and how important ease of use is when it comes to filming. After this set of releases and Sony's leapfrogging of them, we started to get the Sonification of Canon, where they have put much more emphasis on Sony qualities. Sony has better low light ability until Canon came up with their triple base ISO in the C80 and C400. And then culminating in the design and release of the Sony Canon C50 FX3. The best thing about Canon used to be that they were Canon. It was Canon that Canon had to look like Canon. Now they're becoming more Sony, and I miss Canon's old Canon. And I might sound like a QCanon conspiracy theorist, but the changes they've made to their lineup when it comes to video, I think have done them a disservice. I really noticed it in the C80. I reviewed it here on the channel. Overall, I enjoyed it. It's great. My beef was with its continued bonkers form factor, the fact that it only used SD cards, a little bit of cripple hammer creeping in, and yes, I shot a fun little micro short with it. I put it up against the FX3, FX6. A good time was had by all. But I couldn't help but notice how sharp that image looked now it was 6K. And now I don't mean good sharp, I mean bad sharp, I mean over sharp. That's right. Take a drink because the ISAZH filmmaker is talking about over sharpening again. Now, Canon cameras have always been pretty sharp, but that C70 has a real nice softness to it, a pleasing softness that had disappeared in the C80, and as many have pointed out, we lost the source in the conversion. Since then, all of their cameras have had that same sharpness in some variation or another, and it does make the whole lineup look very dull and digital, like Sony. But we should not aspire to be like Sony because Sony is the convenience camera brand, not the image king camera brand. But here we are with these hyper sharp Canon cameras throwing out all their innovative dual gain ISO technology in favor of competing with Sony's convenience. The Canon source has also been compromised by the fact that they closed the door on third-party lenses. Yes, you can still adapt via PL or EF, but I can't help but feel that their ownership over all the RF lenses has led to a type of boring sameness to most Canon footage with those first-party lenses. Very sharp, very unforgiving, kind of flat, and that's partly because all the RF lenses are made by Canon and are really similar in the way they look. That's good for color matching, but you end up with the pod people looking images from the RF lenses that look way too similar to each other, which also accentuate the clinical sharpness and dull aesthetic. We want the old Canon, man. We want the damn source. Everything just looks so dry. Like there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. Canon colors are excellent, but it's all just so true to life in a mundane sort of way. Where's the magic? What's making these cameras come alive in the modern mirrorless? At least if they let other manufacturers make lenses for them, we'd get a point of difference. People trying something outside of the box, not following a well-worn formula. Never mind the savings for your customers. Give them some sauce. For the music video, we cobbled together at the very last minute and shot it all in 8 hours. I switched the R6 III to the A cam, with the C300 being the B cam, to take advantage of the R6's improved autofocus and ability to use that 24-105 RF lens. Now, for my creative work, I would normally try my very best to avoid photography autofocusing lenses, but this video had some serious time constraints, and I did want to put an RF lens through its paces on something creative to test my hypothesis. Just know it was a practical choice, most definitely not an artistic one. We filmed everything in 4K Canon Raw Lite C-Log2 to match. There are currently no cages for the R6 III, but I simply placed it inside my rigid Omnia Cine Rig setup and used it like that for the entire day. I've done a whole video about the Omnia, but being able to use it with any camera makes it incredibly versatile. Reviewing the footage we filmed for the music video, I have to say that on the shoot, this camera performed very admirably, and the 24-105 is a hell of a zoom lens. I think I was more impressed by the R6 III looking at these images. Here's a few of my observations. Overall, the menu was very easy to navigate and much nicer than both the Nikon and Panasonic S1 II. However, the frame rate quality settings were a little confusing, choosing between fine 4K and normal and 7K and between RAW and RAW Lite and OpenGate. It should be noted that the flip out LCD screen is terrible. It is very small, and after using the ZR for the last couple of months, the tiny size of the screen is far worse for me. 3 inches in any other situation would be considered unacceptable. It is small, and after using that ZR, the size of the screen is far worse for me. But don't worry, 4 inches, totally fine, so don't get depressed. I hope ZR has lit a rocket under every other brand's ass about what they need to do for their LCD screens to stay relevant. It was also interesting to see that the Canon autofocusing most definitely has not caught up with Sony's. It's better than Panasonic's and I think probably better than Nikon's, but I still had plenty of issues on set with it losing focus, tracking on faces, and with sharp abrupt movements with our artist performing, it kind of lost her a lot of the time and we missed focus, even when she was the only one in frame. Canon has their colors, Panasonic has their IBIS, and Sony has their autofocus, still the undisputed kings in that regard. Having RAW internally is fantastic, but I also do feel like looking at this RAW footage, it's the most limited of the RAWs that I've worked with. It's great that they offer a light version, but it just doesn't feel like a big leap from the regular shooting modes as some of the other cameras. It just doesn't feel like a true RAW codec. That being said, I'm grateful to have it and I would still favor it for creative shoots. My only gripe is, why is sharpening always turned to +10 by default in the RAW tab? I mean, it'd be better if it defaulted to -10 and we could adjust it back up. And I would definitely choose Canon Raw over, say, ProRes Raw, simply for the ability to save a lot more on file space, but I don't really think it stacks up against B-Raw or R3D. I filmed with this pretty much 8 hours straight, running power from the D-tap on the Omnia into the R6's USB-C camera. I had no overheating issues, but I was only recording in 24 frames per second and 4K on this video, and I think we do have to acknowledge that overheating is a definite risk on this camera, and is why this may not suit being your A camera. Although it seems to perform consistently well at 24 in 4K. If you up the frame rate to 60 or open the gates, that might be another story entirely. I didn't do any overheating tests for it, but I'd say this is the biggest asterisk around using or buying this camera. If the C50 has any real leverage over the R6 III, it's the fact that it will never overheat. Overall, I would say that perhaps I judged the R6 III a little too harshly in my opening hypothesis. While the sonification is strong, there's no doubt that this is a pretty fantastic hybrid camera full of modern essential features that elevate this above a lot of other cameras on the market. It certainly makes the A7 IV look kind of outdated by comparison. Personally, I would buy this over the C50 because at over $1,000 less, I can live with a touch of overheating and a side of no shutter angle, but I wouldn't trust this to be my A cam. Yes, I do think the C300 Mk III does produce a nicer, more saucy image. But to give the devil his due, I think the R6 III is actually much closer in quality than what I thought it would be. This is a great combo that could really accommodate any shooting scenarios. And my god, is it refreshing to finally see C-Log 2 in a camera at this price. However, for now, I don't feel compelled enough by my experience to go out and buy this just for the matching color space. I'm quite happy to use my Nikon ZR in this B cam capacity and just color match in post. And the ZR definitely does cover a lot of the same bases as this one, with the added bonus of 32-bit float and that massive flip out screen, not to mention the fact that you can adapt to Sony glass, old Nikon glass, and yes, even Canon EF glass, along with plenty of third-party lens options, none of which the R6 III has. I enjoyed using the R6 III on a super fun shoot, and it actually impressed me in a way I didn't really anticipate. While it does feature that kind of clean, rather flat, very sharp vanilla image, that image can still be really impressive despite those qualities. And as we roll into 2026, this is by far the best value Canon camera on the market. And it has a lot of nice new features that easily put it on the same tier as the FX3s and S12s and ZRs. And you have to take your hat off to Canon for not even picking up the cripple hammer once and making this incredible value for money. This is definitely a poor man's C50 with IBIS, but that one extra feature makes it more usable in a lot of situations. And let's be honest, we're all poor right now, looking at these cameras and trying to find the most value for the least. The R6 III is most definitely that for Canon. As always, I am the Canon conspiracy theorist, savage filmmaker, and I'll see ya when I see ya.